Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Granger. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I'd like to thank you for coming out for this fourth community conversation this evening to talk about the future of Fauquier County. So a lot of exciting things happening in the county right now, and the board certainly appreciates your time coming out and spending with our planning staff and our consultants to talk about the future of the county. And we hope to use this information to help chart a path for the next 10, 15, 20 years of the county. There's been a lot of success in the past on smart growth in this county, and one of the things we seem to be seeing coming out of that is the community wants to continue going down that path, while at the same time some of the additional things that have popped up, like expanding business and industry, which is certainly on the forefront of the board's mind right now, and we've had some recent successes and we want to keep that going. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kimberly Fogel, our Director of Community Development, and on to the program. So thank you all for coming out tonight.
Yeah, and I thank you all for coming. We have a lot of forces that are coming at us on a day-to-day basis. A lot of changes are happening in the world, and all of these things affect us, affect our future, and also how we can achieve and maintain the vision that the county and its citizens have for its future. So we've been doing these conversations. We're now here at the fourth and last community conversation. We've talked about what we want for the future and have started to talk about action. So tonight what we're here to do is, after this presentation, we'll share with you some of the strategies and actions that we have thought of and things that have come from you all. One thing I would like to say, though, is if you find that we missed something, please let us know what that is. We'll put it up and we'll address it, because it may be something that has been completely overlooked. The county's vision, you can see there, I'm not going to read it for you, but it talks about agriculture, it talks about thriving service districts, it talks about protecting our natural and cultural resources. These are all established visions that the county's had for the last 50 years. The wording here was just recently adopted by the Board of Supervisors last year, but it reflects all of the same concepts that we've had in the past. So at the first meeting, we asked, what kind of future do you want for Fauquier County? And at that meeting, we talked about a lot of trends that we were faced with. And people came up with a lot of wonderful ideas. And we were able to take those ideas and put them all together into basically 5 different themes. We had managed growth, concentrated development, preserving rural lands, a strong agricultural economy, vibrant villages and towns, and expanding business and employment opportunities. At the second meeting, using those same, well, let me just say, there were 5 themes and now there are 3. What we did when we started to talk about obstacles and opportunities, we saw a way that we could bring together the vibrant towns and villages along with a concentrated development. It seemed to focus well together, as did preservation of our rural areas and our agricultural economy. So we ended up with 3 themes in which we talked about obstacles and opportunities. What was out there that was preventing us from achieving our vision, and what kind of opportunities could we build upon as we moved into the future. Then in the third meeting, we talked about actions. Well, what kind of actions can the county take, or can the county support, that will help us achieve our vision in these 3 vision areas? And that has brought us to this point today. At this point, I'm going to ask Milt if he'll come up and he'll talk with you a bit about where we're going now.
Thank you all for coming again tonight. So the charge tonight is to get your reaction to these draft strategies and actions that have emerged from all the input we've heard from you. So that's the objective for tonight, is to get your further input. And we've actually taken those 3 sort of simplified vision themes and boiled them down even further into kind of a poetic simplicity, you might say: thriving communities and services, strong rural lands and economy, and expanded business and industry. So those are the 3 sort of vision themes that we'll be dealing with. And so what we want you to do tonight is we have 3 stations here. We're going to go around and sort of give you a chance to sort of interact with those stations and look at those ideas and give your comments. And each station has, there's 3 stations, one for each of the 3 themes, and then each of them has several boards that have all the proposed strategies, actions, and then also ideas about how the actions can lead to benefits for the county and how we might measure success going forward, because this is a strategic plan. So first, though, and I'll come back to this for details on how you can engage the different stations, but first, Andrew, Mike, and Matthew are going to review some examples of these things so that you can get a better sense of what you're going to see when you go around the room.
The first vision theme that we're going to look at is the strong rural lands and economy. And in looking at this one, we broke it down really into 4 distinct strategies that we saw as being appropriate to pursue in the future to help the county realize its vision. The first is to continue and expand the land conservation efforts. As you're all well aware, Fauquier has a proud tradition of preserving its rural lands. There's significant benefits to doing this. It's been proven in the past that the costs associated with these in terms of the demands for services are low. Many people cite this as an important quality of life feature that Fauquier County offers, the existence and presence of these rural lands in close proximity to the busy Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And so that's something that the county definitely wants to see continue into the future. The second strategy is to expand the local foods and agritourism sectors. This really represents a largely untapped resource. Within a 50-mile radius of Fauquier County, you have approximately 6 million people. And many of those are living in a much more densely urbanized environment and are seeking opportunities to take advantage of getting back to nature, getting back to agriculture, coming out to take advantage of rural mazes and seasonal activities, taking advantage of farm-to-table type food opportunities. And so this is really a market that is relatively untapped by the county and certainly provides ample opportunity for the future for the county to grow and develop into. The third strategy is to expand the agricultural infrastructure and capacity. What we've seen is that the agriculture that we do have within the county is very much at the primary level. There's not the secondary step that's being taken of value-added opportunities, processing opportunities that could take some of the raw products that are produced within the county and really help to increase the economic value of them and see those returns come back to the county. Presently, those raw products are being exported out of the county and much of the profits are then leaving the county and going elsewhere. And so a strategy to try and tap into those returns and see those stay within the county is something that we see as being valuable moving forward. The fourth strategy is to expand the agricultural education and outreach. And this takes 2 sort of main prongs. We're going to get into it a little bit, but as a brief overview, the first is to help to reduce some of the conflicts that we see between the agriculture and the more suburban sections of our county, helping them to understand the importance of what takes place with farming, some of the things that go along with farming, and reduce some of that friction. The second aspect is an educational component to actually help provide more training and assistance to the agricultural community. Help provide opportunities for entry into the agricultural community, help provide opportunities for further education to help them refine and improve the effectiveness of their agricultural operations. So we're not going to go into detail on all of them, but I wanted to focus briefly on one of the particular strategies and talk through that, and that's looking at this last one of expanding the educational, agricultural education and outreach. As you can see, we've identified 5 specific actions that we'd be proposing that the county follow and look to support as part of this. Many of these are focused on the training aspect, focusing on increased education for the farmers themselves, but also within the high schools and some of the local community colleges, and perhaps increasing the exposure that young people have to agriculture to see if that is a viable career path for them that they want to pursue. And just helping them to realize the opportunities that may be there. Part of this also would help play a role in succession planning for existing farmers. What we're seeing is increasingly an aging population of farmers. And so wanting to find ways to help promote and see the succession of these farms take place to ease the transition. The second sort of theme that shows through in these actions, as I said, is educating the general public about some of the impacts of farming. These could take place or could take the form of education from transportation impacts. We've heard stories of the frustrations that drivers have when caught behind agricultural vehicles on the roads. But helping to increase the awareness of the necessity for farmers to move those that agricultural equipment on the roads would be important to, I think, easing some of those tensions. It also would involve potentially working with VDOT to find ways to allow for opportunities for vehicles to pass safely. When you think about roads like 28 at the moment with 2 lanes and high volumes of traffic, what we heard from the agricultural community is they're making their best efforts to move their vehicles at times of the lowest traffic, but it still will cause congestion and backups. And so needing to work to increase the education and awareness so we do have safe driving taking place, but also opportunities for potentially pullouts for the agricultural vehicles to allow that to take place. So what are some of the potential benefits if we do pursue these strategies? Well, we could see greater continuity between the generations of farmers. We could see those succession management plans, increased opportunities for entry into the farming or agricultural industry for those who wish to do it. Greater understanding and appreciation of agriculture from the community as a whole, and a recognition of the importance of agriculture to the community. But then also what we could see is increased economic returns for the farmers, ways that they could have more training and make their industry and their businesses much more efficient and effective. And all of that helps the local economy and sees more of those dollars staying within Fauquier County. So looking at an example of one of those action plans and how it might be implemented, what we took was a very broad level approach, and we sort of wanted to identify some potential champions and groups and organizations that might be able to take the lead on these activities. We then also looked for potential funding sources. We looked at potential timeframes that could be involved, and as well as who the supporting cast would be, who would be some of the other players involved. And so we've taken steps to try and identify these just so that when we do come to implement them, we have a clear idea of who would be involved and what their responsibilities might be. But a plan is only worth the paper it's written on, essentially, unless it's actually measured and there's a follow-up to it. And so we wanted to make sure that there were some metrics in place to look at the implementation of this and actually make sure that we were being effective and there was some measurable outcome. So we've identified certain metrics. Again, many of these are macro level and many of these will take time to actually see realistic returns on them. But I think by tracking them over time, we have a realistic opportunity to gauge the effectiveness of these strategies and make sure that the county is in fact moving towards its intended vision. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew.
So the second vision theme, or vision theme B, is that of expanded business and industry. We've identified 4 strategies within this theme. The first is to create dynamic business centers. And in this case, we're thinking of the actual physical space itself, the districts and the buildings that will allow businesses to have the space and the collaboration opportunities with other businesses that will enable them to thrive. Second, we talked about encouraging growth and the addition of new businesses. And this is being approached for the second strategy more in the sense of policies, administrative processes, allowing businesses to establish themselves and to grow here more easily and to not be hung up on different bureaucratic elements. The third would be to enhance workforce education programs. It will prepare the county's workforce to have the skills that they need to succeed in the businesses here. And then fourth is to respond to the needs and the practices of the new rural economy. And so, as Andrew is discussing, the rural economy, agriculture, has been changing quite a bit in the last several decades. And so I'm just wanting to make sure that the county's policies and all their plans really respond to those new needs and are able to address them effectively. So just as Andrew did with agriculture, we're going to walk through one of these strategies. In this case, we're going to do strategy number 3, which was to enhance workforce education programs. The actions that we identified for this strategy include conducting a study to officially identify workforce training needs. Second would be to strengthen the partnership between the county and Lord Fairfax Community College. There's also supporting the expansion of technical and trade programs in local schools, especially for students or residents who aren't likely to pursue a four-year college track. And then finally would be supporting the establishment of business apprenticeship programs in order to build these relationships between residents and the businesses located in the county. So some of the potential benefits that might come out of these actions include decreasing the training costs for local businesses, so they have to spend less time and money preparing their employees to have the skills they need to succeed. It's also increasing employment opportunities for local residents in the county so that they don't have to leave to go to other places in order to find work. And then third would be enhancing the county's ability to attract industry clusters or groups of related industries that share common skills and needs. So to think about how the county can implement these actions, we'll consider the study of the study of workforce training needs. As presented here, we're saying that the study could potentially be led or championed by the county's Department of Economic Development and supported by the Lord Fairfax Community College Board and the local public schools. A study like this could potentially occur within the near term if the support was present in the county. And it could be funded through sources such as the Rappahannock-Rapidan Regional Commission and or county funds. So how will the county know if it has succeeded in enhancing the workforce education programs? Well, it can look at measures like the number of partnerships that have formed between businesses and the county's education programs, can consider the educational attainment levels of county residents, can also look at the percentage of the county's workforce that actually lives in Fauquier County as opposed to commuting in from elsewhere. And also they could even look at things such as the median income of resident households. So that's Vision Theme B, and now I'll hand this over to Mike, who's going to be talking to us about Vision Theme C.
My name is Mike Callahan. I'm with Renaissance Planning and here at my 4th community conversation, but my first time behind the microphone tonight. So I'm going to try to be quick and not savor it too much so we can move on to hearing from you all and the thoughts you have on these ideas that we're presenting tonight. I'm going to talk about thriving communities and services, and I think it's appropriate that this is the third and final vision theme that we'll present before you go around the room, because I think it's really key to achieving the first two. If the county is going to be successful in having a strong rural economy, preserving farmland, attracting new businesses, attracting new industries, it's really critical to attract and accommodate growth within the service districts and for those service districts to really thrive. And so we have 5 strategies here that respond to the things that we've heard from you all through the 3 previous meetings and online. And I'll just, this is the only thing I'll read. I want to just go into a little bit of detail on these. But the first is concentrate growth in service districts. And that's simply really just a continuation of the policy path that you've been on now for many decades. The second is incentives for traditional neighborhood design. Traditional neighborhood design is essentially building communities the way they've been built for many generations. We've gotten away from it a little bit by separating out uses and making it difficult to walk places. But this is really about building complete, balanced communities where you can live there but you can also get to your job easily, get to shopping easily, and not have to do everything in your vehicle. You have transportation options. The third strategy is to diversify the county's housing stock. We do know that the housing is predominantly single-family residential, but there's a need for additional types of housing in the county. We heard from you all that the population is aging. We heard from the community college students that said, we don't live in the county, but we want to. We want to live near our college. And so those comments really speak to the need to have a wider range of housing types in the county and in the service districts. The fourth strategy is to provide more transportation choices in the service districts, and this is really key, especially to the second strategy, making it so people can walk, people can ride a bike, people can drive. Driving's still important, but just making sure that there's a wide range of transportation choices. And that could also mean, in the long run, transit and access to VRE. And then finally, the fifth strategy is provide sufficient water and wastewater for the service districts. This is going to be really important if the districts, reach their full capacity. Those things are going to be an issue. They have to be addressed in order to allow the growth that the service districts are able to accommodate. Just to go into some depth here, of course, all of the actions are listed on the posters around the room, but just to give you an idea, a sense for one of the strategies, what some of the actions are, I've drilled down a little bit here and to provide more transportation choices. There's 7 actions associated with that, and really we're focused through these actions on policy changes that would help bring about more transportation choices, such as requirements for sidewalks, for instance, and investments, how the county invests its funds in infrastructure, and also, the types of projects that it pursues state funding for. And then also we have on here some additional research kind of studies that you might need to do for things like transit. What are the benefits? This is really, I think, what matters most, and I think is exciting about this action plan we're pulling together. But if you provide more transportation choices, there's a lot of benefits that would come from that. One being less congested streets. If people don't have to drive for every need or get a ride, that means that you may have less cars, more people on foot, more people on bike. The second item there is more social engagement. That may seem kind of academic, but I really think this is important. When you think about the amount of space that our streets take up, it's our largest public space quite often. And having that space be a place where it's not just for vehicles, but also people can be on foot, they can interact, you run into your neighbors, and it can be a great public space, a great social space for people. The third benefit we listed there is more business for local shops, especially in your service districts and in your downtowns. Okay, we're not talking about shopping malls, but in the downtown areas of the county, those businesses depend on foot traffic and people being out and walking about, and so making it easier to do that is good for business. And then the fourth benefit we have there is healthier residents. When you have more options to walk and bike and you take advantage of those, it's certainly good for our health. As Andrew and Matthew have mentioned, we're also thinking of these actions and how to implement them. We don't just want to have kind of a list, but also a roadmap for how you could implement these things. And so we haven't finished fleshing out each of the strategies and actions with these items, but just to take an example, for the second action under provide more transportation choices in the service districts, we described launching a traffic calming program. And this would be something, we've seen other communities, other counties that do it, where in the places they really want to be pedestrian districts, like your town centers, your downtown areas, Investing resources into slowing traffic, whether that might be with curb extensions to make it easier for a pedestrian to walk across the street, or just doing things to kind of slow the traffic speed with the lane widths and things like that. This is a really important action for achieving this strategy. And so we wanted to think about how would you implement this. And so we thought about a few things. One is potential champions. That means who might take the lead and make sure this happens. And there, the thought was community development would be natural to lead that. And then we also wanted to think about supporting cast. Whose support do you need? The county can't do it alone. And Virginia Department of Transportation, of course, owns, maintains a very large amount of streets in the state, and you need their support to do a lot of the things that you might do to calm traffic. In terms of a time frame, you could really get something up and going in the near term in terms of a program, but it would be a long-term endeavor to kind of implement this action. And then funding resources, there's certainly VDOT funds. I don't want to name every program, but there's several that you could tap into, and then of course county resources as well. And then my final slide here is on implementation as well. Wanting to make sure that this isn't, a plan or a set of strategies and actions that we forget about. We want to make sure that over time we're checking in, seeing how we're doing. And so we've suggested some ways that you could measure your progress towards providing more transportation choices. And so we got 4 things here. 2 of them are simply infrastructure. How many miles of sidewalk do you have? That's real simple to track every year. And then also how many miles of bike facilities, such as bicycle lanes, do you have? And then there's other things that I think are also very helpful for tracking progress. One is the % of residents that are walking or biking to work. That is something you can also track over time through the Census Bureau. And then finally, observe traffic speeds. In our service districts, in the core, in the town center areas, is traffic moving more slowly? Do people feel more comfortable out and about, on foot, on bike, et cetera? So with that, I'm going to hand off the baton to Milt, who's going to talk a little bit about what we'll be doing for the remainder of the evening.
So now we're just about to the fun part, or the most fun part. As I said before, we have posters around the room, and they're set up. There's a poster for each strategy, and there's several of the strategies under each vision theme. And each of these posters has a description of the strategies in the upper left of the strategy that it's for. And then in the upper right, there's a list of these proposed actions to achieve that strategy. The strategy is kind of a broad course of action, and then the detailed actions specify how we're going to achieve it. Lower left is a list of possible benefits and outcomes, and then in the lower right is the measures to track progress, which sort of follow the sort of outline that the guys just presented. So that's how it's set up. We've got 3 vision themes. We've got 4 or 5 strategy posters under each vision theme, and have that content.
We have placed all of these boards exactly as they're presented here on our webpage, and it's the opportunity, if you want to share that with your friends or your family or neighbors, that they can go over the course of the next month and take a look at them and provide their input as well. We're trying to get as broad an input as we possibly can.
So what we want you to do is really give us any and all feedback you have. And we want you to go around the room at your own pace, in your own order, your own sequence, look at these things, and give us your feedback by writing your comments on little Post-it notes and sticking them on the posters. We've got facilitators at each station to help you. And we want any kind of feedback you have. We want positive comments about what you like, negative about what you don't like, concerns, ideas that you think might be missing, warnings, caveats that you want us to look out for as we implement these things, further ideas about what benefits might be or what expected outcomes might be. Anything that strikes you as you look through these strategies and actions that would be helpful to the county as it continues to refine these ideas. And then after you've done the 3 stations, and again you can do it in any order you want, the last thing before you leave is right where you came in, there's 2 posters that are duplicates of a list of all the strategies, 4 or 5 in each of the 3 vision themes. We want you to look at those again. They're the same ones you have looked at each station, and put a green dot on your favorite one, the one you think is most important under each of the 3 themes. So you have 3 dots, and each dot has to go under one of the 3 themes. We don't want you to pile them up on one. We want you to allocate them among 3 themes. Just the strategy that you think is the most important for the county to undertake. And again, I think we can welcome further comments at that point too, as well, if you have other follow-up ideas. So that's the process. I'm going to turn it back over to Kimberly for kind of a wrap-up on what's next in this process. But after that, you're free to just interact with us here in the room, offer your comments, and then we'll wind down informally. It'll be a very informal kind of conversation.
We're back to the schedule. I had mentioned that we were on the fourth and the last conversation here. Once we leave here, we're going to be taking everyone's ideas, changes, concerns, what have you, and working through a more final action plan here. And it was anticipated that we would be bringing something to the board in December. It looks like we probably will be sometime in January that we get it back to them. So with that, we're going to turn you out into to review the boards and to talk with staff members and just have an informal discussion here tonight. I thank you all for coming. It's been very, very helpful to us to have all your input into this process. Thank you.